And then I get very angry. Oh, I don't need you connecting Steam. What are you doing? There we go. Alright, I hear myself, I see myself. Alright, I'm back after what happened yesterday, which was terrible. Functionally, I just didn't get any sleep the night before. So, I had a late night. I had a really late night that night. Uh, and then 2 hours after I had finally gotten into bed and gone to sleep, Granny wakes me up because her toilet backed up. So I try and explain to her that I can't necessarily do anything at the moment because I can barely see. I'm so tired. Um, and I just tell her use the other bathroom and I'll take care of it when I get up. So I lay back down. I start having coughing fits and coughing fits and coughing fits, and I'm like, all right, well, I'm obviously not going to sleep. So I have to get like a cough drop to get myself back to normal, and I'm like, well, since I'm up anyway, I might as well put the plunger in and like at least unclog the toilet, and then I can worry about drying the floor up later. Um, so that takes about an hour before I'm back to sleep. And then 3 hours later, she wakes me up because she can't get the TV to turn on properly, as has been the case almost every day for the past month. She can't seem to grasp when I tell her don't hit the channel button on one remote and just, use the other remote. I might just hide that first remote. I don't know. I don't know. She needs that other remote to turn the main TV on. It's so depressing. But not nearly as depressing as what happened after that, because, I eventually, went back to sleep and slept for another 2 or 3 hours before waking up. This time I just was done. I couldn't sleep really anymore. It was over an hour after I should have woken up anyway. Um, So I went and I went to go take care of the bathroom, and she was sitting on the toilet, soaking her socks in the poop water on the floor. And I discovered that she also has just not been wiping herself. She poops and then she just goes. And she's got caked poop on her thighs. So that was yesterday for me. And some of that trailed into today. And so I just didn't do any streaming yesterday. It was a mess. And I am sorry for spending the first part of this just expunging that into the world. But that's my life. uh But, and I also just want to, clear the air on what happened. No one's in dire danger. It's just a really bad day. And I haven't fully recovered. But, I did sleep last night. And I'm going to sleep tonight. Uh, God willing. So, let's talk about the topic at hand. The reason that I did a Gintama pitch last time was specifically because of things like this, where with Gintama, it's much harder for me to break it down by arcs. Gintama it's all arcs. All of it is just arcs. There's 70 arcs in Gintama. And they're 2 to 3 episodes at most. Many of them are a single episode, sometimes half an episode. It's impossible. I would have to basically do an episode by episode run of Gintama, and that becomes difficult because it gets hard to parse out everything. And we start to kind of, stumble on where on the just kind of, okay, come on, Steam. I hit restart Steam to let it do its little update. It updated, it reloaded, and then it just told me, hey, restart me again. I need to update again. Anyway, so that's now on my screen, distracting me. No, go away, Steam. Anyway, but for Gintama, the best ways to break that story down are, I mean, there is the big division of like the comedy stuff and the plot that I can cover at some point, but that's just huge and unwieldy without understanding the things that are going on underneath. And really the best way to understand what's going on underneath with Gintama are the themes and the characters that are going on, because this is where you can actually see through lines running through the series that are defining what's going on. And interestingly enough, one of the reasons that I wanted to put this pitch out there is because a lot of, especially the theming discussion, is directly related to and mirrors themes in One Piece, which is why I wanted to talk about the two of them side by side. In a lot of ways, Gintama is heavily influenced by, or even written in response to, One Piece. And at the foundation of that is the central theme that the two stories share, which is the found family theme. It is the foundational theme for both of these stories. It is the note that it starts with and the note that it ends with for each of these stories. And they come about it in completely different directions, and yet manage to hit the same important and emotional moments with both stories. And to start off with, because found family is not all that uncommon, actually, especially in Shonen Jump. A lot of Shonen Jump stories at least attempt to do the found family theme. Where One Piece and Gintama succeed, and most other Shonen Jump stories don't, is that most Shonen Jump stories end up twisting themselves into a knot over the blood parents. For instance, and this critically weakens the story. You know, Naruto has a huge amount of found family themes going on, but it never like cements any of those bonds. It never manages to pull off an emotional, like, connective moment between characters. You've got this relationship between Naruto and Sasuke throughout the whole thing, and you never really see where that bond occurred, ever. Like, you have to just assume that it's there. In fact, a huge part of Naruto, it almost feels like a one-sided love letter between Naruto and Sasuke, and the whole thing is, well, does Sasuke really care about him back? And then it's just never answered. And then you have, you know, Naruto's parents getting in the way and muddling this found family theme, with his parents being very caring and very loving and very willing to sacrifice themselves for him. And then Bleach has a lot of the same problems, where you have this same kind of found family theme going on, and it works really, really well up until they extend the story because someone paid the writer more money, and he decides, well, let's explore Ichigo's actual parents. And that immediately muddles this found family theme and just decays it around the edges. The function of the actual parents in a found family story has to be in a few roles. Otherwise, it starts to really deteriorate the purpose of found family. And One Piece kind of explores the various roles. You've got, you know, non-existent or distant, in the case with, you know, Luffy's father and Luffy's mother, where we just don't know where they are at any given time. You've got abusive with Sanji's father. You've got and several other characters, parents. You've got loving but dead, sacrificed to themselves, with Nami and Robin. These characters have import. So the parentage is kind of an important factor when you're talking about a found family story. There kind of has to be a reason for there to need to be a found family. And it may sound crass, but there is a reason for this. If the parents are alive and kind, then there isn't an intense amount of pressure for people to go find family. They have a good family. And the other side of that issue is that when the parent isn't necessarily abusive, but exists and is powerful, it also has a lot to do with how you do it. If you don't manage to put the emphasis on the found family, so let's actually step over to a recent American piece of media that uses the same themes very, very well, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, which uses the whole his father's a powerful person who's not necessarily abusive, but is narcissistic. And it doesn't decay there because it exposes the abuse. It exposes what the abuse looks like. It exposes what an ill-functioning family looks like, and it reveals what a functioning family looks like, and how you can get the functioning family without having the blood relations involved. And this is where stories like Bleach and Naruto just kind of stumble over their faces, because as much as those themes are present, and they aren't necessarily central to either of those stories, though that has more to do with both of those stories having shaky theming to begin with. Again, this is kind of common in Shonen Jump. Most Shonen Jump stories have some form of found family aspect going on, or it's not there at all. At all. And that's just kind of something that's commonplace in Shonen Jump. Some of those do really well, some of those don't. And a lot of that has to do with the ability to write such a story. It's difficult at times. You have to be able to grasp the emotional bonds that happen in a found family setting. And not everyone can do that. And some people can't even write. I'm looking at you, Naruto and Bleach. That's a little unfair to Bleach. Bleach can write, it's just that I don't like the writer very much. The writer may be a terrible person. Anyway, so that is kind of where you have the concept of found family, and Gintama approaches this in the same way. Gintoki, let's now actually look at our main characters. These two run in absolute parallel, where Luffy's mother is unknown and Luffy's father is a powerful and dangerous threat in the world. Gintoki's family is never talked about. Gintoki's entire backstory revolves around him being found in the middle of a field of dead bodies and taken in by somebody. That's it. We never see his parents. We never talk about his parents. It's just not a thing. He is a war orphan. That's it. And so, and then we move to the parallels, where, Luffy gets his found family by just being a rambunctious, eager go-getter. He makes friends with Ace because he doesn't want to be alone. He makes friends with Sabo. He makes friends with Zoro. He makes friends with Nami. He pushes to make these bonds. He works to create these bonds, and he does earn them. He does do what needs to be done to earn these connections to the people that will become his family. Gintoki, on the other hand, is in the absolute reverse position, where he's constantly pushing people away, where he wants to be isolated. He wants to be alone. And it's because he is punishing himself. He has a lot of self-hatred, self-loathing, because, he killed the person who took him in order to protect the rest of his friends. Because he brought an end to this thing in such a terrible way, ending up shattering the friendships that he had and losing his father figure in the process by his own hand. But it was the only thing that could be done. They would all be killed otherwise. And so he's punishing himself. He just doesn't want to be around people, because he's done probably the biggest sin anybody in a found family story could perform, which is to kill the loving father. And it is, when you start to see this peel out and understand his activities and actions towards others, and why he's got this crass, I don't give a shit attitude as he goes through life, and yet he can't help himself from stopping something that doesn't look right. Couple of guys making fun of and picking on the waiter at a restaurant. Well, he's not going to stand for that. He's going to beat the shit out of these asshole bullies who think that they're better than everybody else. I was going to blame it on the waiter too, but he also is an asshole. He also is trying to push people away, but he also just doesn't want to have to witness things that are wrong around him. And so, because of that good-natured part, because of that seed of goodwill that he constantly puts out, because he's constantly just casually stepping in to solve problems while trying to not take any of the heroism or any of that at all. He literally just kind of wants to solve the problem and move on with his life. He still attracts and draws in people who don't leave him, who are willing to kind of put up with the barbs and needles, who in many cases have their own sets of barbs and needles put up, their own walls set up to protect themselves, who get him, who understand he's hurting, and want to be there to help him. And where you have on Luffy's ship this kind of an extended family going on an adventure together, with a couple of the more adult characters like Frankie and Robin, and then Zoro and Robin really kind of being the adults in the room, Zoro, Robin, and Nami, and then like Chopper being the really little kid, and Luffy and Usopp and a couple of the others being a little bit more rambunctious teenagery, and then Brook being the old perverted man, the grandfather, and now we've got Jinbei coming in to be kind of the emotional rock, maybe the good uncle, the fun uncle. You've got this kind of extended family feel to the crew as they rely on each other and they take care of each other. With Gintama, it's a little bit more typical, not typical family. Each of the groups, each of the clusters kind of have their own family setup going on, with like the Yoryuza being Gintoki as the father, and Shinpachi and Kagura being the kids, and Sadaharu being the pet, with the landlord kind of taking a grandmothery role, as well as Catherine just kind of existing. I mean, Catherine works, and this is where like Gintama, when you start to get into the metaphors, this is where things get like kind of fantastic, because really, the relationship inside the Yoryuza house does have Otos being the matron of this little family, and Catherine being also the matron, basically the wife of Otos, basically the another, motherly sort of figure. The two of them are a paired couple, and it's not necessarily a sexual thing, but it is definitely a relationship that the two of them have of relying very heavily on each other, as kind of two parents would when dealing with younger people. And fascinatingly enough, when you take one step down in the family tree of this weird ass family where nobody is related to each other, you have Gintoki taking care of Kagura, and Kagura's own biological father, Umibozu, coming in occasionally to help and get into a fight with Gintoki. But there's a fantastic episode where Kagura starts dating someone, and immediately these two put away their differences and both start acting like a father for her, like that aggressive type of father too. Like, we're gonna show this punk ass kid who's gonna date our daughter. And then the punk ass kid turns out to be bigger than the house, but And Kagura is, of course, the one that ends up calling it all off and leaving, and kind of just leaving Gintoki and her biological father, and Umibozu, with the mess to clean up afterwards. It's really a fun story, but it does reflect that there is, and she does, in her little final letter, her little final note, talk about how great it is to have two caring fathers. So there is this kind of interesting exploration of what found family can be in terms of gender diversity, too. They don't even have to be caring for each other in this kind of relationship. Gintoki and Umibozu both hate each other's guts, but they both care very much about Kagura. So when Kagura's on the line, they're willing to set aside their differences and do what needs to be done to take care of her. And it is this just fascinating exploration of just how weird a found family can get. And, One Piece has a lot of that going on, too. You kind of have three parents in One Piece with, Zoro, Nami, and Robin kind of being the parents of the group. They're the ones watching and making sure that the ship doesn't catch on fire and burn into the sea. You have Usopp and Luffy just kind of going wild, doing their own thing. Sanji is sort of the cool brother. He just is kind of there and doesn't want to really mess with the others, but he's even kind of verging on the edge of parent-like status himself with his only, he has this hate-love relationship with Zoro, so, maybe he's just the angry child. And, Chopper's obviously clearly the youngest one, and Brooke is clearly the oldest, with Frankie and Jinbei kind of being the fun uncles of the group. It's still very, you can still kind of see some sort of nuclearism. Like, there's four parents, but it's four pairs. Both of the two women on the ship are definitely parental figures, and there's two guys that can be considered fairly parental. So it's still fairly nuclear and somewhat typical or at least attempting to mirror a typical family, compared to Gintama, which just throws it all out the window and goes for this gnarled relationship that's people who are bound together by caring about other people. And that is, the found family of Gintama. It's those weird threads where they don't necessarily care about every individual in the community group, but the community as a group is still connected by the attachments to individual characters. And this is what builds that final climax moment where the whole community, in both of the two climaxes, because Gintama needs two climaxes, clearly, where you have a war on the planet, and the whole community comes out to fight, not because they care about the land. They abandon the land. They gather the people into the safest place possible to save as many lives as possible to stop this thing. They go so far as to, when one of the ships is falling from the sky that is carrying most of the enemy passengers, they go so far as to stop it from crashing into the planet to save both the people on the ground and the people in the ship. They go so far as to, in the final fight, in that part, it's not a fight that's won by Gintoki. Gintoki is not the one that deals the final blow. Everybody does. The 10 strongest of the fighters are the one pierce the final enemy from every direction and end him. Which is just a fantastic moment of showing this guy who's trying to rip apart humanity, not understanding that it isn't about the individual, it's about the community. It's about the whole. It's about everyone coming together to do the right thing, to do what needs to be done to excise the problem. And in this case, excise the problem is cut a bitch. And it is in the second climax where, when Gintoki's trying to solve this problem on his own, this big problem of trying to save the revived life of his found father, who ends up dying anyway, that the community is the one that comes out to help him. That the community, as they find out that this is what he's up to, comes to his aid, whether he wants them there or not. It is found family and it is community that is at the core of Gintama, and it is the same stuff that's at the core of One Piece. It's such a powerful storytelling tool because it's explaining the thing that I think most people spend their whole life looking for, which is how to make a connection, a meaningful connection with someone that isn't part of your family. And it is something that everyone seeks at some point in time in their life. Everyone is looking for. And it is something that runs at the heart of many stories for that very reason, because it is something that people try to grasp and try to understand. And these stories really these two short stories really put on display what that looks like, what the give and take looks like, how you're supposed to deal with other people, how you should consider other people, and how to do it in different ways, in completely different ways. You don't have to be the rambunctious, bulletproof idiot that Luffy is. You don't have to be you could be, a flirtatious chef or a quiet samurai or a guy that is a jerk to other people but does the right thing when he needs to. You can bitch and moan and complain if you want, so long as you do the right thing when it comes time, and so long as you're active in doing the right thing. Not just, because this is the thing that Gintoki does, it's not just if he sees it or not. It's if he hears that something's going on. If he even suspects there might be a problem, he goes and he finds what's going on and he tries to make sure he knows what's going on before he does anything. And when he's figured out that there is a problem, he steps in to stop it. Usually at some sacrifice to himself. And then he tries to leave without anyone finding out that he's done it. It isn't, until he's got tag-alongs that he, sticks with. And to be fair, he does trust his companions very quickly. Kagura and Shinpachi really are very quickly adopted into his family once he realizes his attitude isn't going to drive them away. He very quickly starts to just rely on them and allow them to do what needs to be done to help him figure out what's going on, or to even solve some of the problems themselves. This is the other thing that's fantastic about Gintama, is that the story isn't just about Gintoki, as much as he is at the core of it. It's a story about everyone, and everyone gets their moments to shine, sometimes outshining the lead. So, this is, this is what's fascinating about these two, and this is what is so important about... This is why I wanted to talk about the two in parallel, because it's such... And I mean, I've gone now for about half of it over Gintama's found family themes. And there are plenty more moments. There's a lot of really good moments, like the introduction of Sadaharu, which I've recently been rewatching Gintama with a friend. And this it goes through all of the story beats that a comedy show would for adopting a pet. And, it doesn't help that they are critically poor, and Sadaharu is bigger than all three of them physically. But he understands that Kagura really wants to adopt this dog. And he can't control it. Neither of them can. The dog's literally bigger than they are. If the two of them gang up on the thing, it still drags them down the street if it wants to. In fact, more likely, it's going to just chase them down the street because it's got a habit of biting them. And I mean, trying to eat them in one gulp, biting them. And when he does get a chance, his first opportunity while Kagura is away, he takes the dog to the sister of Shinpachi, who's basically part of the family, the small family group anyway, since Shinpachi spends most of his time at Yoryuza anyway, and they spend about half their time at his sister's house, Tei-chan's house, as well, in part because she has food. And also a house that's not, a piece of garbage. But she does. She has a big house. It used to be a dojo. She's got a lot of land around the house. Which, thinking about it in terms of that is a much better setup for a dog. And this is, of course, where Kagura finds them, trying to push the dog off onto someone else, gets into an argument, and leaves them stuck with the dog, and then they get the actual ask. What would be in most comedy shows that deal with this, the point in time when they make the mistake, which is a third party comes in, they're looking for a rare dog to pawn off on a prince. And most comedy shows would get that, and they'd be like, here, take the dog. Because the point is the regret afterwards. And Gintoki doesn't take that bait. He hears that, and he goes, no, I don't want to give him to you. I just don't want to give him to you. Which means that at this point he's already considering her feelings. He already acknowledges that she really cares about this dog, and he's trying to look for a way that she can be with the dog and they can take care of the dog. And at this point, he's kind of acknowledged the fact that this is going to have to be his dog. This dog's going to be living with them in their dinky little apartment over a cafe shop with their no food situation. That's going to be it. And it sucks. But that's the sacrifice he's going to have to make to keep functionally his adopted daughter happy. Because she's really attached to this dog. Like, really, really attached. She got this whole tragic, fucking of mice and men. God, what was the name of the slow character who squished the mice? Because that's what... She squished a bunny when she was a kid, because she's super strong and she doesn't know how to control her strength. But, because this dog is gigantic, even if she's not controlling her strength, the dog doesn't care. In fact, it's kind of revealed that the dog's been trying to eat her for a while, and she just doesn't... She thinks he's playing. And the dog is a little bit confused about this. But Sadaharu very quickly, gets over these problems. He still habitually bites Gintoki, but I think that's just more out of enjoying doing that. And because Gintoki tends to be an ass. And so you have this... So he's already kind of come to this conclusion of, we're going to just have to figure out how to make this work. It's going to suck. I'm going to have to do more work that I don't want to. But we're going to have to make this work. And to the series' credit, because it does have some habit of kind of hand-waving away their poverty at times. But it also doesn't shy away from it entirely. Because not too much further down, there's the story of of them being out of money for a period, and this is presumably something that happens every now and then, where they get critically low on money, and literally it opens with him dumping 4 pellets of dog food, 4 little pellets of dog food into Sadaharu's bowl, and each of the 3 others taking one, because that's all they've got to eat. That's all of them have got to eat. And Sadaharu doesn't take that well. He leaves. And he has a really rough time trying to take care of himself and take care of this other sick dog. And he finds out that, he's been subtly helping Gintoki, as Gintoki has been sending medication for this dog that the people in the town just want to have the dog killed. They think the dog has some sort of disease and it's going to make people sick. And the vets he's found a vet who's told him what's going on, that the dog is owned by somebody, and that person can't afford the medication and can't find the dog anymore. He's figured out that Sadaharu's found and is taking care of the poor pup, and he's subtly feeding the medication. Because Sadaharu's keeping the pup somewhere where he can get to them until the pup heals up. And over the course of the episode, Sadaharu is doing exactly the same thing that Gintoki has been doing for Sadaharu, which is giving up his meals so that the pup can eat enough to recover, because he's taking care of this. He's adopted this thing, and he's getting hungrier and hungrier, as even though he's doing all the effort to catch fish and catch food and gather food. And I presume that is largely what the crew does. What the cast is doing when they're low on funds is going out into the wilds and catching whatever they can to eat. Because they're all fairly skilled in doing that. But it doesn't change the fact that, times will get tough. And upon finding out that Gintoki's actually been trying to help this dog, even rejecting the pay of the townspeople to kill it, as he, gets the medicine to the dog and also finds the owner and gets the two back together, Sadaharu sort of comes to the understanding of what Gintoki's been doing, and the episode ends out with, again, the 4 pellets and all 4 of them just taking a pellet and accepting that today it's just gonna suck, and we're gonna have to share what little we've got in order to have the strength to go through the day, and it sucks. But poverty sucks, and that is another core theme for the story that I'll get into probably later next time. Who knows? We'll see. But it is a very heartwarming series. So now we're going to go ahead and flip over to the One Piece side and some of the found family theming there, as much as I've already kind of touched on a lot of it, because it is throughout the story. But you can see it building throughout, where with Luffy and Nami, especially, it's like the very first moment of understanding that this is really central. Like, this is the first moment where it becomes very clear because of Nami's relationship to Arlong, because of the because of the abusive step parent found family aspect of Nami's story, which is reversing that theme, which is actually painting a very stark contrast between the two. As you know, he has truly befriended her, and Arlong was just using her. Those themes persist throughout the story. These are the themes that lead to, Robin being able to finally trust them enough to declare she wants to live, that she would rather live with them if possible, knowing that they're going to come for her, that they're going to save her. These are the things that lead to Usopp coming back into the crew, because he knows he can't be the braggart to them that he is. He can brag to other people, they don't really care, but they need him to be honest with them. And to his credit, from then on, he is very honest with the rest of the crew. He doesn't really, throughout the story up to the end of Water 7, you'll see Usopp, especially after Chopper joins, because he's got someone who'll listen, just bragging to Chopper about all sorts of things. And Chopper, they've got this little bit where he says a thing and Chopper's like, "Oh, that's awesome," or, "Oh, is that true?" And he's like, because Chopper's willing to believe just about anything. And to some degree, Luffy joins in on that bit, because he's also kind of willing to believe most things. After Water 7, after Usopp rejoins the crew, he doesn't do that anymore. He stops bragging to the crew. He doesn't put on a front for them anymore. He's accepted that he's part of this family, that he's not the leader of this family, and Luffy is barely the leader of this family. But that his role is accepted, that he doesn't need to fluff himself up anymore, that he doesn't need to try and posture his position in the crew, that he is safe to be whoever he wants to be, in whatever capacity he wants to be it. He can pursue whatever he wants, and they aren't going to judge him. They're not going to sit here and go, "Well, your goal was to be a brave warrior of the sea. You certainly aren't acting like one." They're not going to judge him. They're not going to sit here and try and push him. They're willing to help him if he wants help, but they're not going to step on him and try and push him into doing things that he's not ready for. And it allows him the space to grow into the character that he will be, which is still very cowardly, but that is kind of just a core trait for Usopp. The fun thing for Usopp is that it is kind of an instinct rather than a personality trait. His instinct is to see something big and scary and go, "I don't want to do that." Even if he takes a moment and he goes, "Okay, I can maybe do that." So yeah, and then you have the same moments, especially when the crew's dispersed, where they're able to come to an understanding through a single image, and understand that as much as these 2 years are going to be hard, that it's also very important that they get stronger, because after that defeat on Shibondi, they know they need to get much, much stronger. Otherwise, they won't be able to stay as a family anymore. This sea will kill them. They'll end up having to say goodbye to somebody. And it wouldn't necessarily even have to be. And this is where it was very clever that Zoro was the first one removed, because that sent a very clear message that that the first one to die in the crew didn't necessarily have to be one of the weak ones. It could very well be one of the monsters. It could very easily be one of the monsters. The sea is so strong that it doesn't discriminate between them, that they are equally weak in face of this ocean, that the ocean itself will claim them all indiscriminately. And that understanding is so important, because that drives them for those 2 years to get better, to get stronger, to understand that they have to get to the point where they cannot be easily claimed. That if the sea comes for them, if these powers that are so great on this vast ocean target them, that they won't just crumble and fall. They have to be strong enough to at least hold their own, to get away, if nothing else. And that is the found family. That is them wanting to be able to continue to be together. That is the power of them wanting to be able to be together. And this is like where this theming is so well done in One Piece, is like, so many stories do we did it because we're together and the power of friendship sort of thing. And it feels tacky. And it feels stupid. But with One Piece, you can feel it. You can feel the power of their family bonds, because it isn't that they're just together, that they're strong. It's that they're strong because they're together. They are individually potent people. They're individually capable. But together they're far, far stronger than even the sum of their individual parts. And that is because they'll make decisions together. They'll make decisions as a group, and they'll understand what they need to do in order to solve the problem. They're able to cover for each other's weaknesses, take over the problems that the other ones can't solve, and get to the solution that needs to happen, because they're working together. And it isn't this weird power of friendship, because it is that they each have their own sets of skills and abilities that allow them to solve problems that the other ones can't. They're diversified and well suited to help each other. They're well suited to tackle problems that the other ones can't, or would be wasting their energy on, which is another thing that happens, especially in the second half, with lower tier characters like Frankie and Brooke taking over fights that aren't necessarily too hard for, say, Sanji or Zoro, but knowing that they need to take that burden away from Sanji or Zoro in order to give them the space to go take on something that's even stronger further in. It's that ability to quickly place tasks, to quickly allocate the resources properly to the situations that call for it. It's the reason why in Dressrosa that Luffy can tell Sanji to leave, and he can tell Frankie to go crazy, just go berserk and fight. It's the reason that Luffy tells most of them to just go fight, because he knows that the bonds call for that he knows who they are, and when a line has been crossed, that they will not sit quietly, that they will disobey his orders if he tells them to stay put. He knows they're going to disobey him anyway, and frankly, he would disobey them as well in the same situation. So he's just like, just do it. Just do it. Just don't die. And he trusts them to do it. He trusts them to do both of those things. And he does, in Dressrosa, tells Sanji to leave with the others because he knows this is the only way out. They need to get away. They need to take Momo and Caesar away from the island before these forces that are coming down around their heads catch them. This leads right over to fucking Whole Cake with Sanji's extended backstory and his moments of these are Sanji's is particularly painful for me because that is one of the ones that feels very reflective for me of just feeling so invisible and feeling so pushed out of society. I spent most of my life in a room alone. I'm still spending most of my life in a room alone. But it is a little bit of a reflection of Sanji's extended backstory, with him sacrificing himself for the crew. And it's a different twist because he gets free much earlier, but he still feels these bonds, specifically with his sister. I think he's mostly trying to save his sister. He doesn't seem to care too greatly about the others. Circumstantially, he'll save them mostly because his sister cares about them, but otherwise, fuck him. Which again is fairly painful for me to watch because that's oof. When I get to, and I'm gonna probably be moving back over to One Piece arc reviews soonish to close out. I'm kind of trying to wait for Wano to end because Wano's gonna end so soon, and that's gonna really set up for the ending of this whole thing. But I'm doing these daily. And maybe I won't be doing these daily for very much longer. I'll be having Factorio to add and extend and push some time out. And I say found family, and I might have to do a One Piece specific found family as well. But I did kind of want to just talk the parallels between the two stories because it's just, and I'm pausing, I'm hesitating here because again we're getting close to Wano, and Wano hasn't necessarily closed out, and while there is the starts of themes to found family in Wano with Yamoto and some of the other side characters, it hasn't finished. So, I haven't seen the resolution yet, and I don't know what the specific metaphors are going to be. I mean, I have prediction for Wano, but, I'm going to put that in a One Piece specific video, at least. So that, people aren't pairing this with Gintama. But yeah, so, this is just one of the things, and I'm going to probably do a little bit more on, I don't know what I'm going to do. I have ADHD. I'm going to do whatever I fucking feel like tomorrow. And nobody's going to continue to watch this because nobody watches what I say anyway, so. And on that, and I think I will end on that glorious note. Bye-bye.